All right. Thank you. Welcome back to day 2 of the Reconnect Academy. Appreciate it. I know heard from some people about conversations that happened yesterday in the breakout rooms, and that things are plugging along. So I'm excited about that. Please use the chat to check in. Is someone trying to talk to me?
I think I needed to mute. There was some feedback.
Gotcha. Okay. So please use the chat to check in this morning. Check back in, since we don't all know each other and we're still quite a large group, with your name and institution and your discipline and title. And then I'm going to go out on a limb and ask, what question is on your mind this morning? And I know that there are some questions that I received overnight that I wasn't, or yesterday, that I wasn't able to address individually. And that's probably great, because I can address them with the large group before we get started. But please go ahead and drop those questions in the chat. And while you are doing so, remember our housekeeping. Today we will not have an administrator breakout. So if you are an administrator and you want to go to a breakout session, I would say pick one of the ones that are associated with a discipline that you're interested in. So choose from 1 to 5. I wanted to point out to my QR and college algebra colleagues and other colleagues too, I do have some extra breakout rooms created. So if you need another breakout room, if your group wants to split off and discuss some different things, those rooms are available. So just let me know. Okay, there's the housekeeping. Oops, this is the wrong slide. Hang on. I put the slide in the wrong place.
And I'm just going to draw attention in the chat. There's lots of great introductions coming in. There are a few questions that you might need to scroll through. It looks a little bit like they're questions for chat discussion among peers, but you can certainly take a look there. Okay, great. I will be doing that. Let me just get through this agenda, and then I will turn to those questions, because I have some that I want to address anyway. So today we're going to spend some time this morning in kind of a plenary presentation discussion about preparing to support students in a co-rec environment. And we will be featuring some information from Allison and some Mentimeter discussion questions. And then I will do very briefly a look at a reminder about the next steps. I'm excited by what has gone on with this academy and the engagement that we've been able to create among you, and the way that this is going. And I'm excited to be able to go on supporting you through the Center for Student Success. So I don't have a whole lot to tell you about what we're going to do for next steps, but just a little bit about what's coming up. And then we will go to breakout number 3, and then we will adjourn at noon. Or whenever you can adjourn from your breakout rooms. So we're going to end early. That's always good news on the last day of school. So that's our agenda for today. And now I am going to take a look at the questions in the chat. And if anybody has one that they know that they wanted me to address, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak also while I'm scrolling through. Okay, okay, writing samples. People are looking for activities. Yeah, these seem like things to share among the colleagues. Great. So some action already happening. Yes, Carmen, I have the I have Phoebe's Canvas discussion queued up to address those questions. That's first on my list. No problem. Oh, and that was a direct message. Sorry. But I did want to let the folks from Delta know I will be addressing your questions in Canvas. Okay.
Great. Continue to put your questions in. I want to go ahead, and I did get questions from the folks at Delta. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to address about those questions. One would be the question of the 70%. The 70% of students. And I know that I need to own the 70% and the confusion that created, because when I started talking to people about how to look at complying, think about complying with the Reconnect legislation, what I said was that you should anticipate that 70% of your students would be able to complete their gateway courses in a year or less. When I said that number, I was thinking about this data that I showed you yesterday from the VFA main cohort. That is all students who enter the institution for the first time post-high school completion and are enrolled in credit or developmental classes in the fall term. So that's one of the questions posted in Canvas was about when we say 70%, what do we mean? This is all me. Okay, the 70% is nowhere in the legislation and has been nowhere promulgated by the state. That was me saying, I want to give you a rule of thumb that it should be the majority of your students, a significant majority of your students, about 70% or more of your students should be able to finish their developmental and should be able to finish their gateway course within their first year of enrollment in math and English. And so I used this data from the VFA main cohort. I was thinking of this slide, which I did show you already yesterday, that shows you how many students are actually passing college level math and college level English in their first year of enrollment. So that is what, it's confusing because there's a difference between whether or not students have the opportunity to pass their courses within the year of enrollment because they can take one course and then another course sequentially, and whether or not they do. Does that help clear that question up? Because I'm really sorry to have created this confusion.
Jenny, I have a follow-up on that.
Yeah.
This is, so they finish within 1 year. So that's from the first semester they begin that first
Correct.
year, or is it from the first time they entered the math track of some sort?
No, from when they first enroll in the college.
So even though students, many of them will wait, and maybe take math their last semester, we don't really care. So if they begin their developmental course in the second semester of their second year, they would be counted as a failure, or not really a failure, but they would not a non-completer because they started late. And even though they would finish in 1 year, we're not going to count them. So,
Correct.
So then it's important that for the purposes of this legislation that we try to encourage our first-time students to take math immediately, and that's going to improve our completion rates.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah, that is the premise behind the early momentum metrics, is that if students get started on those gateway courses, they are more likely to reach other significant completion metrics, like completing a certain number of credits, getting into their program of study, successfully transferring, completing a degree. And that those students that, even though we know that students put off math because they're afraid to take it, the fact is that the longer they put it off, the less likely they are to complete it anyway.
So Jenny, along that line, currently our students who are placing into developmental are not even encouraged to take math the first semester. And if they're taking ALP, which is 6 credits, and then they end up with 6 credits of math, they could really only take English and math that first semester. So, so that's not just a shift in what we do as a math department, but that's, you know, that's an advising shift, and you know, so there's some other pieces to that.
There are, this is kind of related to guide, that's not kind of related, it's deeply related to guided pathways and the fact that getting students in their program of study and in their gateway courses is going to be significantly correlated with them actually finishing something. And that does involve a shift in advising, that does involve a shift in how we think about how we target students, to, you know, how we target our interventions with students, to get, yes, we need to get, and if they are taking, you know, if they're taking a full load and they take ALP and they take a math and they take, you know, a orientation or something like that, when they, in their first semester, in theory, they could be done with both those gateway courses, not just in their first year, but in their first semester. And then the world is kind of more their oyster. They can take, then they can start taking their program classes. They're not working on finishing up Dev Ed. Okay, so, oh, someone is answering Deb's question. No, this data is all students. That is correct, Bree, all first-year students. You have it right. Bree's answer that students who wait to take math until their second year, I mean, they won't be counted as non-completers, they just won't appear in this data. Where this data looks at this data looks at what students do in their first year. Yes, all first-year students, including part-timers. And this is a good question about the credit hours or math and English. This is what you guys need to decide when you design your sequences and your co-requisites, is how many, you know, how many credit hours can they take? Bearing in mind that we'd like it if they could finish both their English and their math in their first year of enrollment. How do you design, you know, their program so that they can do that?
I see Phoebe's got her hand
Yes.
raised.
Go ahead, Phoebe.
So this, I'm having a little bit of a conflict in my mind between finishing in 1 year and finishing in 1 semester. And here's why. Basically, we're being told if students are taking any sort of standalone type 0 level classes, I'm going to call them Dev Ed classes, that they have to be done in connection with or alongside a credit bearing class. On the one hand, it says that they have to finish in a year, but I'm also getting conflicting information that they actually have to be able to finish in a semester. So which is it?
So most students should be able to finish in a semester, depending on what they are taking, depending on their math pathway. Your focus is math, right? So let me answer based on that. So if you are a student who is going to take a quantitative reasoning course or a statistics course, those courses are well suited for students to be placed directly into a co-requisite, or even like, you know, if they're going to complete intermediate algebra for a career program, those students are well suited to be placed in a 1 semester co-requisite model. If a student is trying to enter a STEM pathway and they're entering with a significant deficit in algebra preparation, they might be more likely to need to take something before they take a co-rec college algebra experience. So the more students, so basically in a numbers game, the more students you can get to complete in 1 semester, the better off you're going to be with your numbers who complete in 1 year. And that's where the that's where my guidance came from early on. So, and the other thing that to be aware of is just because you have a sequence set up where students can take a course in one semester, take a developmental course in one semester, and then take a gateway course the following semester, you need to keep in mind that leaky pipeline and the fact that the students tend not to enroll in that gateway course, even if they successfully finish the developmental course. Does that help?
I understand, but that means that so I guess I'm trying to see what I'm hearing, or just make sure I understand. If I have those lower level students who need that math dev ed course before the co-requisite gateway course, can they take, I'm just going to give you numbers that don't mean anything to you, but could they take the math 099 in fall and the math 118 co-requisite course in the winter?
Yes. I mean, yes, they can, but you need to consider how many students you're directing into
Absolutely,
that 099.
absolutely. So we want to direct more of them than probably presently directly into that 100 level course.
Correct.
Or in the case of our statistics, the 200 level course.
In the co-requisite, yes, into the co-requisite,
okay.
yes.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Allison, have I said anything wrong?
No, I don't think so.
Great. The other questions that I think that came from Canvas yesterday had to do with, I think, the model, whether it's an extended hour, the co-requisite model, whether it's an extended hour model that's all students who are taking the co-requisite and the college level versus the college level course with a co-requisite course attached to it in a commingled model where some students are all college level and some students are taking the co-req. You can do that either way. Both of those models are valid models. You don't, it's not, and if you have, if you make your course a different number, so your 118A is your model that lasts for 5 hours and has 2 hours of co-req with it, versus your 118 is your regular model, that works just fine for this. You can do that.
Jenny, can I ask you a question? And this is sort of a clarifying question for you based on your experience of the working group around the placement recommendation. So what Phoebe was just asking, what I heard her asking was, is it fine to still have a freestanding dev ed course, 0 level course that is not paired with a co-req? And my understanding is the answer to that is yes, but not for students to be charged for it.
That is,
and so is that the plan? So for the institutions that want to hold on to the 0 level course, they would absorb the cost of that for students, or Reconnect wouldn't pay for it.
The Reconnect, yes, that is correct. And I overlooked that. Thank you for clarifying that, Allison. That is true. The Reconnect legislation won't pay for that 099 course, the Reconnect scholarship. And so when you place students into that course, you need to be aware, that they cannot use the Reconnect scholarship for that course. And so your choices as and you can't charge that student for the course. You can't say, oh, scholarship won't pay for that, but you need it, so you have to pay for it.
Okay, I got to jump back in here now. I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
I also read that and heard yesterday that if a student needed 2 dev ed courses, they could take 2 in the same semester, and that was okay per the grant. So for example, let's say they needed the basic math and the pre-algebra type class. We're just going to call them that for lack of better terms. And that they could take those 2, and I'm reading this then into part B of the legislation, which is not the co-req model.
Correct.
So my question then comes is, can a student take 2 Dev Ed classes in one semester, have it paid for by the grant, which says you can, and then take the credit bearing class in the second semester?
So you are now above my pay grade in legal interpretation of legislation. That is going to be something that schools are going to have to determine. That is, we're going to have to continue to ask for further guidance from the state. I can't really advise you about whether that would be compliant. What I think is most compliant is not to have a sequential experience for students at all. If they possibly could, if you can possibly put them into a 1 semester co-rec, that is what you should do, because that will certainly be compliant. There is no definition of the lowest level math course Reconnect will pay for. From Karen's question. I see Kristen with her hand up too.
Thank you. Phoebe actually got to my question, because
Okay.
with all the different ways that you could put it together, and the legislation being clear that they just need to be at their college level, taking their college level course within their first year. I guess, and like you said, we'll have to talk to someone else about it. I don't understand why, for example, if a student just needs that 1 lower level math course and passing it gets them to their college level course the next semester, I guess I don't see how that's outside of the scope of the legislation. So I guess that's just something we'll have to find someone at the state to answer.
Right. Well, and if you leave aside whether it's outside the scope of the legislation, because what we are talking about here is the fact that the research shows that they don't do that. It doesn't matter that they only needed 1 course and they could take it the next semester. The fact is they don't do it. Life gets in the way. They don't enroll. They don't end up passing that gateway course in 1 year, as the sequence may be set up so they can. The fact is that the majority of them don't.
So do we see that with our college level students as well, that they'll take composition 1 in fall semester, but they won't enroll for composition 2 in the next semester?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so essentially, if we would need to move to an accelerated model in general to increase all of our students. There's a natural tendency for students to start classes at any level, not just Dev Ed, and not take the next course, whether or not they're successful.
That's true. And there are colleges who are experimenting with accelerated models, but it's exacerbated by the students that that are placed into Dev Ed because they didn't have a chance to complete they don't have as good of a chance to complete their college level course as they would if you were able to place them in a co-rec.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are there any, Katie or Allison, do you see any other questions in the?
Oh, something just came in here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I will also say, and I think Jenny, you already sent I think the June 25th is.
I'm going to be talking about that. Yes.
Okay, because Brandy will be at that and can probably answer some of these questions, maybe about how it will be maybe, I don't know, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I really can't speak to, I can't guarantee what it means to be compliant. I can tell you that if you adopt a co-requisite model for the vast majority of your students, and you are focused on getting the vast majority of your students to actually complete a gateway course in the first year, in English and math in their first year of enrollment, that you are likely to be in compliance with the Reconnect. That's the best I can do for you. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question, Phoebe, about the models that you were concerned about? Did I get that one?
I think we're okay on that one.
Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm going to move on to some of these threshold concepts, and I'm going to turn it over to Allison because I think actually this has been a pretty good lead in.
Yes, awesome. Okay, do you want to advance once? I'm so
Okay.
sorry, I put in a bunch of advance like things.
I knew that.
Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, so this is, and some of you I've probably shared this with before, but so working with institutions and systems around the country that are working to do this work, to following evidence about the ineffectiveness, the structural ineffectiveness of traditional prerequisite remediation. One of the sets of things that we're observing from the institutions that are further along in this work and the sort of the place that folks are heading is around a set of what we're referring to as threshold concepts, because for myself as a former faculty member, it's a concept that resonates because I remember, I know from my discipline, there were a set of concepts that once students kind of get those, once people understand those, it kind of opens up the discipline for them. This is a similar kind of thing. There are a set of threshold concepts in this kind of work that we're watching institutions make a journey on and make and sort of empower themselves and each other, colleagues, to sort of walk this journey. And so these are sort of from and to. The first of these is from a really long-standing, traditional, completely understandable orientation of higher education that is grounded in this idea that only the worthy get through, that it's about sorting people out. It was an English faculty member in Ohio who said to me, I feel like I'm a goalie. I was trained by my discipline and by the academy to be a goalie. I stand here in front of the ivory tower and I make sure that only the worthy get in. Well, that's not appropriate for an access oriented or open access institution. And you all understand this as community college folks better than anybody in the country, frankly, that the work is about supporting students and about meeting them where they are. And so I was thinking about, sort of, and probably you all, many of you, if you're in the roles that you're in, higher education probably worked for you all right. Traditional higher education probably worked all right for you. And I remember various sort of lectures that I got from faculty. And I remember pressure as a faculty member to kind of deliver similar messages around having high expectations. Not all of you are going to cut it. And some percentage of you at the end of the semester aren't going to be here. And that's what it is. And that was sort of the pep talk, right? Well, that is a devastating pep talk for students who come from persistently marginalized, racially minoritized backgrounds or low-income backgrounds, where all of the signs that they have been getting from their society their whole lives and their schools has been, you're not college material, right? And so there is, even for community college practitioners who are who understand this in your bones better than anybody anywhere, there is still there's still a deep-seated sorting impulse in higher education. And so to walk that journey from sorting to supporting is one that we see. We just helped facilitate a faculty-curated and faculty-led teaching and learning academy at SUNY with the Student Success Center there. And there were a huge slew of presentations, like sort of mini presentations on the things that faculty do to signal to students a supportive environment in the classroom, strategies around the syllabus, strategies around language that's used on the first day, the way that, and there were just lots of really interesting examples of what the opposite is of that traditional sort of lecture about not all of you are going to cut it. And it goes something like, I actually believe that all of you can make it, and I'm here to help that happen. And math is scary or English is scary, but we're in this together, right? So there is a kind of from sorting to supporting journey that needs to be walked by institutions in this, and that we're seeing institutions walking and helping everybody, faculty, staff, administrators, everybody engage in. The second one, and you're all familiar with this, I'm sure, is this idea of shifting from a notion of our students ready for us to, are we ready for students? And the best work that we're seeing in terms of the best outcomes for students in co-rec and placement are where courses are designed. There was a section yesterday on backward mapping. So it's not about just taking the freestanding dev ed and cramming it in alongside disconnected to a credit bearing course. It's about what does it mean to be ready for students as they are, to ensure that the developmental components, that the support components are really tightly aligned to the objectives of the gateway course, and that you know, sort of what it means to be ready for students is really a different kind of mindset than bemoaning student readiness. Students are as they are, they will come to you as they come to you with greater challenges than they've ever had. And it's enormously difficult, but what does it mean? What does it do to practitioners to practice the mindset of being student ready and designing for student readiness? The third one here is we all believe deep in our hearts, whether we know better or not, that because we're told this continuously by our society, that people get what they get by the virtue of their hard work. But the fact is that structural inequity, structural racism, structural barriers to student success are proliferate in all of our major public institutions, including higher education, and constrain and unfairly constrain opportunities for students that are not born into privileged positions. And so really helping ourselves and our colleagues move away from a view that students achieve what they achieve because they either can cut it or they can't, to a real equity consciousness, which is around interrogating not only policies, practices, and structures for disproportionately negative impacts on students who are already coming with the greatest barriers before them, but also how faculty, staff, and others themselves engage in self-reflection and personal growth as they think about implicit bias in their own classrooms, their own interactions, how they think about student achievement, and just sort of unpacking all of the things that have been layered onto us as a society. Again, as community college practitioners, you all understand better than anybody else the structural barriers that students face. But there's something across these threshold concepts that's really about, and this is the next one, it's about co-ownership. It is about, you know, yes, there are all kinds of things that happen. High schools, there are challenges with high schools, there are challenges with communities, there are challenges with all kinds of things. Life happens to students. But this work is about what is it that institutions, faculty, staff, administrators can own, can influence in lowering barriers, in leveling the playing field for students. And so it's very much a looking within to change individual practice, to help institutions navigate the world as it is, and relinquishing some of that blame game stuff. And so that's one of the from to kind of threshold concepts. And the last one, and this one is so, you know, Aaron said it a few times yesterday as he walked through. I loved his presentation because he walked his journey, right? Like, we thought this, so we did this, and it didn't work. So I thought this, and then I did this. And I was really attached to my prerequisite course because we thought, we just believe that they're not ready. You can't throw them in. It's unfair to students. They're not. They need to go slower, or they need the thing before but it's actually, the data is definitive that it is in fact the structure of the beforeness that itself is a significant sorting problem for students and doesn't have the impact that we want it to have. And so these are the kinds of threshold concepts that undergird the work, and where we see institutions further along in the work, seeing significantly, sometimes dramatically better outcomes for students. It's where we can see these threshold concepts in development. Now, it's not like you flip a switch, just as you know this from teaching, right? It's like, this is something that everybody needs to absorb, and you make the road by walking on this. But these are the kinds of things that can be helpful for folks in thinking about their own impact on students, right? So what is it that how do we as faculty as staff, as administrators, as advisors, impact student experience and student outcomes. So if you can click again, Jenny. So one of the headlines here, and I'm just going to share 2 pieces of research that, and there's more forthcoming, but the concept here that is really important that I want to help impart and create space for reflection on is that faculty mindset is as important as student mindset when it comes to closing equity gaps. And so if you want to click again, unfortunately, I'm going to hit you with a bunch of text here now. So here's a quote from a piece of research, and then I'm going to show you a longer blurb on this research. So this was a study 2019, STEM faculty. The findings here were that STEM faculty who believe that ability is fixed, that student ability is fixed, have larger racial achievement gaps and inspire less student motivation in their classes. So there's 2 sides of this research. I'm going to share both of them with you quickly. All right, so next click here and let's see if people will be able to, okay, there you go. All right, so I know you can read, but it's early, so I'm going to say these things to you out loud anyway. So this is from this piece. I put the link to this research in the chat yesterday as well. So results from a longitudinal university-wide sample, 150 STEM professors and more than 15,000 students, revealed that the racial achievement gaps in courses taught by more fixed mindset faculty were twice as large as the achievement gaps in courses taught by more growth-minded mindset faculty. Course evaluations revealed that students were demotivated and had more negative experiences in classes taught by fixed versus growth mindset faculty. Faculty mindset beliefs predicted student achievement and motivation above and beyond any other faculty characteristic, including gender, race, ethnicity, age, teaching experience, or tenure status. These findings suggest that faculty mindset beliefs have important implications for the classroom experience and achievement of underrepresented minority students. So this is something that when I came across this, and we can go to the next slide here, I was blown away by this research and this focus. So much attention is paid to student readiness, student deficiencies, quote unquote, student challenges, and comparatively little question or attention is paid to the impact of faculty mindset on students. And so I wanted to share that because I think there is something to consider there as we think about, I was thinking back and looking back at my notes of the faculty members at SUNY who were presenting on the kinds of things that they do in their classroom, the kinds of things that they say to their students, the way that they signal to their students their belief in their ability to do this work. Oh, you can check out, I can put the link back in here and you can check it out, Sarah. You can dig in deeper there. And so I just want to put that there for folks. All right, Jenny, do we have that second slide? If not, I can share my screen as well.
I think you might need to share your screen because this is the only slide that I found in your email.
No problem. Okay, so let me share quickly. I'm going to share my screen. And some of this I'm going to say I'm taking from Peter Adams as well, including a quote from one of his colleagues' student evaluations. So that, can you see my screen now, Jenny?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so this is, Peter's, and many of you probably know Peter Adams. Those of you in English, he's the inventor essentially of the ALT model. He also, while the Community College Research Center and Tom Bailey are kind of credited with the original sort of aha about what doesn't work with traditional developmental education, I would like to say that Peter was there possibly first on that. But Community College of Baltimore versus Columbia University, maybe some of that traditional status stuff got in the way of recognition. But so life issues plus affective issues, so belief mindset issues on the part of students. That's what is sort of the recipe of what non-cognitive issues are. And when for the majority of student success focused work, the attention has been on sort of students non-cognitive issues and the things that happen in their lives or outside of the classroom or outside of the institution that affect non-cognitive issues, sense of belonging, purpose, mattering, hope, efficacy, all of those things. Faculty and staff attitudes have been underappreciated as sort of impact on students' non-cognitive experiences is somewhat underappreciated. So this is another piece of research from the same group, actually a larger group of researchers who conducted 4 studies, but it's the same core researchers. But it's like, I think there's like 8 or 9 authors on this piece. So there's a piece called research piece 2020 from Journal of Experimental Psychology. The title of the article is, "Does my professor think my ability can change? Students' perceptions of their STEM professors' mindset beliefs predict their psychological vulnerability, engagement, and performance in class." So this is the other side of the research that I shared before. This is about, so the first piece of research was on faculty mindset, right? This is about students' perceptions of faculty mindset. And this is really, really important. So let me just, I'm going to do this to you again, you poor dears. I'm going to share with you a big chunk of text, and I'm going to read it at you. Across all 4 studies, we find that students who perceive that their professor endorses a more fixed mindset beliefs anticipate and actually experience. So anticipate was the first 2, where 2 of the studies were focused on students' anticipatory experiences, and 2 of the studies were focused on what they actually experienced, and how they projected across those things. So anticipate and actually experience more psychological vulnerability in those professors' classes. Specifically, they report less belonging in class, greater evaluative concerns, greater imposter feelings, and greater negative affect. We also find that in the moment experiences of psychological vulnerability have downstream consequences. Students who perceive that their STEM professors endorse more fixed mindset beliefs experience greater psychological vulnerability in those professors' classes, which in turn predict greater dropout intentions, lower class attendance, less class engagement, less end of semester interest in STEM, and lower grades. These findings contribute to our understanding of how students' perceptions of professors' mindsets can serve as a situational cue that affects students' motivation, engagement, and performance in STEM. So when I was looking at this, and so I will also say there is some, it's not out yet, but there's some really interesting research coming out of Georgia from Motivate Lab on this that picks up on this research and looks specifically at students' experiences in developmental education, and in as well as in reformed models in COREC. And the sort of preview there is that students who are in developmental education are hyper aware of they are hypersensitive to the cues that they pick up on about what their faculty and advisors feel about their abilities. And so for me, this, when I look at this, I immediately think about what is so unbelievably problematic about even the most reliable standardized test that one might use when a student arrives at your campus and you say, all right, the first thing that's going to happen is that you're going to take a test and we're going to determine whether or not you are ready for college. The psychological experience of that on students is itself enough to drive away huge numbers of students. It is, you are sending out of the gate a signal to students that they don't belong there. And then you're confirming that with tests, if you're using AccuPlacer, that lack predictive validity and reliability. And so this is the way that we do things, right? This is how we work. We have a fundamental, deep-seated belief that placement tests tell us something about student ability. But what research is beginning to suggest is that placement tests tell us more about the impact and the experience of placement testing on equity gaps than on sort of how student readiness, right? And we know this also from, you know, the research, the mounting research from around the country on GPA. And some of what Erin described yesterday also resonated with this as well. And so I just want to put these ideas here because it's not something that I like, and I haven't been in the classroom for more than, 12, 13 years, but nobody ever asked me to think about any of these things. And I know a lot of this research didn't exist then, but it doesn't seem that there has been a lot of room and attention paid to really helping support faculty truly support faculty professional learning and growth in addressing and meeting students where they are in ways that help students feel a sense of belonging, purpose, and mattering, which has as much to do with their ability to persist and succeed as anything else, it seems. So the one last thing that I want to share here is a quote from, it was a student evaluation, end of semester student evaluation. It wasn't Peter Adams' student, but it was a colleague of his. And I think this is a real, like, just so telling. I'm a really bad writer, but my English teacher thinks I'm a good writer. This semester, I wrote really good papers, so she wouldn't find out what a bad writer I am. And this quote, I find myself thinking about this routinely since Peter introduced me to this. And I find myself reflecting back on all the things that I probably, no doubt, not probably, certainly did badly, serve students badly when I was a faculty member by not understanding or really thinking about this, that the signals that I send my students about what they're capable of has a lot to do with what they're actually capable of doing, right? And so this student, like I had to pretend to be a really good, it turns out I'm a bad writer, but I couldn't have anybody find out about that. So I wrote really good papers because my English teacher thinks I'm good, right? Like that's a very, really telling. And again, back to those SUNY faculty members, I was trying to find specific notes from that session, but there were so many cool examples that faculty used of, techniques that they use to ensure that their syllabi are anti-racist, the kind of first day conversations that they have with students about their belief in their capacity, their, the sense that they belong and they matter and that they should be there. Uri Treisman students, so you probably all know Uri Treisman, the Dana Center math hero. He refers to all of his students as mathematicians and scholars, and he makes them believe that that is what they are. He tells them that this is what they are, and then he helps them find their identities in that direction. And so I just wanted to present some of these things because this is some of the research that's out there now that is, I think, going to grow in coming years from places like Motivate Lab and elsewhere. It underscores some of the things that are underappreciated when we think about student achievement and equity gaps. And I just found it really, really interesting as a former and possibly future faculty member. And I wish these conversations and this research had existed when I was in the classroom. And so that is all I have for you there. Jenny, am I missing anything that you wanted me to
No, great stuff. Great stuff. And I see Brenda's question and Jessica's +1 for Brenda's question about PD specifically to help with faculty mindset. I think there, as Carl just said, there are sometimes breakout sessions. I think as more of this research emerges, there may be people who focus specifically on helping faculty with this, but there also are, any kind of equity-based professional development, any kind of anything that raises awareness of the issues that students are facing in classes. Allison's mentioned Uri and Peter Adams. These are people who are working in this field that, have some availability, but I don't know of any, as this research develops, I imagine that there will be specific programs that could be brought to campus and delivered to small groups. I'm just not aware of any at the moment.
Yep, and I will definitely keep my eyes peeled for that. I do think Motivate Lab is going to be doing some technical assistance support to states and institutions around their research as it comes out specifically on faculty mindset in co-requisite remediation and developmental ed. And so I'll definitely keep you all posted of those things as they appear.
Yep, and things are that people are putting things in chat that may be helpful as well. I do want to take a couple minutes. We're a little behind our time, but that's okay. I want to take a couple minutes to have to do a couple of discussion questions with you on Menti, and then share the next steps before I dismiss you to your breakout rooms. So I'm going back to my show here. And here are the Menti questions for this session. So go ahead, you know the drill by now. Go to, and here's the, I'll get you the link from that. Or maybe Katie already dropped it in. Link, please. No, I'll get it.
No, sorry, I don't have this one either.
Okay, I'll get it. I'm gonna have to.
I
stop
dropped the
here.
longest link in the world to a book that I was recommending, and it came off Amazon really ugly. Sorry, guys.
Okay, where's my plenary 2 link? All right, back to here, and here is the Menti link. And then I'm going to share. Did everybody get the, if you wanted to use the QR code? Were you able to get that? Oh. Did I not add the link? There we go. Okay, I'm going to go to the Menti. This question kind of follows from what we've been talking about. Please rank the relative importance, the relative impact of what you think obstacles are to student success in traditional prerequisite developmental courses. Am I sharing that? I bet I'm not.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it, okay.
Well, we don't see your results screen. We see
There's-
the sliders.
Okay, here we go. Now you should be able to see it.
There you go.
Cool. All right.
Look at the spidering. I love
I
that.
know, it's kind of cool, right? Pretty evenly divided. A little bit of dip on the poor academic skills.
And am I reading this right, that it looks like academic anxiety and life issues are like bigger? This is how you know that I'm a political scientist and not a like qualitative researcher, and not a what is this web telling me right now?
I think this web is telling you that people think that I need to move my system tray because I
Life
can't-
issues and academic anxiety are the
are the
leading.
most
Got it.
most impact.
Yeah. But it's pretty evenly divided. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's all of these things are important. So then I want to go to the next question because this is interesting. And this speaks to kind of this mindset shift having to do with correct. So if you refresh your screen, you should be able to see the next question, which is please rank the relative impact of the switch to co-requisite on the following obstacles. So thinking about what it means and all of the things we've been talking about what it means to move from prerequisite dev ed to co-requisite dev ed. What do you think the impact of that switch will be?
I have it.
Oh, there's a question, negative impact or positive impact?
Ooh, I meant, gosh, I didn't really think about that, but I think that from the question before, it's the same. So if you feel like it has a negative impact in prerequisite, does it continue to have a negative impact in co-requisite? Does that make sense?
So there are a couple of comments that the slide is not advancing for folks.
Okay. Because some people are getting it. Refresh your screen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. It looks quite similar to the last question.
Yes, except you can see my typo. Except you can see my several typos. Oh my gosh, what an English teacher. Oh, I'm embarrassed. Okay, let's move on.
Move on, Jenny.
I don't see any of your typos, so that's great.
No, oh, terrible. How embarrassing. Okay, that didn't work so well. We're gonna bail out of the Menti session right now, but I think this is something to think about in terms of, what it will mean to your students to make this switch that we're talking about. This is kind of what we were trying to prompt from this conversation. And we've had a lot, I think what Allison presented and the conversation that we've had up to this point kind of points this out, but we're stopping sharing this typo-ridden question.
Hey, Jenny, real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
We're trying to get the breakout room set. Can I ask folks to, if you haven't done so, put your numbers of your rooms? I don't know if you were going to do that later, but I know we're trying to do this now and there's a lot of people online. So if we can ask you to update your name using the little more button next to your name in the participants list, or the 3 dots next to your name in the video queue, select rename and make sure that you add your room number. I can put the numbers and categories in the chat for you if you need it. Thank you.
And Jenny, and it's completely legitimate to, although I did not see your typos, so they were probably egregious to you, but not to your audience here.
Oh my God, there's English teachers here, Allison, that they
I'm
also.
sorry. They all saw and they're judging you. There were 2 more questions there that we didn't have time for, but can I put them into people's heads anyway?
Sure, go
Because
for
I've been
it.
thinking about the kinds of barriers. So just for you to have in your mind, like, what are the things that could incentivize, or what are the incentives that exist right now for faculty to make that shift to a co-rec model for the vast majority of students? And then the other question was, what are the obstacles, or what prevents that from being the case? And I'll just say, it would be helpful just to think about that as you think about sort of will building and support, supporting colleagues around this work, that there are all kinds of sources of discomfort and resistance and fear and sort of implicit disincentives around ambitious, student-focused, equity-grounded work. And, everything from fear of not being able to be successful in a setting to just real deep attachment to doing things the way that you have done them, that folks have done them because you put so much into it. Aaron said, like, the last thing that's going to die for Aaron is the pre-req algebra course that he created, because he's like, I loved it. I held on to it until the bitter end, and then he had to let go of it, right? And so sort of the amount of energy and care that faculty put into building courses or building an approach, and how hard it is to move off of that, even if the evidence suggests that it's the structure, not the intentions of, faculty that, is the problem. So anyway, just wanted to ask folks to think about incentives and disincentives around this work and ways of overcoming that, partly because, we know that professional development support, peer learning, and, so really honoring the expertise of faculty and supporting their work in making the shift is so important. And so understanding more about what can make that better is something we'd like to be able to do along the way and capture and help people understand.
Absolutely. And I am going to put those questions in Canvas in the module that contains the information where you will find the presentations and the recordings from this session. These two sessions, these two plenary sessions. You will also find a couple of follow-up questions, and that will be the place. So you'll have an opportunity to reflect quickly, and not, it doesn't necessarily, these are important questions and ones that are not necessarily best addressed by quick chat or quick Menti questions. So
Yeah.
I want to give you more time for that. So that brings me into the next steps in ongoing engagement. So I will be adding discussion prompts for June 8th and 9th. Also watch Canvas. This is going to be our, kind of our place to engage virtually around these developmental ed reform issues. And so and this is a way for you to keep in touch with each other and your facilitators. Watch for questions, more information. We will be developing a new module on guided self-placement. And also at this point, if you have colleagues who would like to enroll in the Canvas course, you can refer them to me, or you can send them I'll be happy to get them an invitation or have them email me. I'll get them registered. So watch for communication from your facilitators. And then on Friday, June 25th, from 10 to 12, we're going to be holding a webinar. It's entitled Leadership Support Placement Recommendations. And this is where we're going to get a preview of the recommendations that Allison talked about, that the working group has put together, and that Brandy Johnson from Leo will be present at that meeting and will answer some of your questions. I don't know how much time we will have, and I don't know to what extent we'll be able to answer every question that you have, but she will be there and you can pose some of these questions to her. You'll also get a moment, you'll also get a preview of the recommendations and an overview of the next steps with those recommendations from Brandy and then from us. So I hope you'll plan to join us. It's on the MCCA events page. I put a link here, but also you can just go to the MCCA events page and you'll see it in the upcoming events. My colleagues are putting together the breakout rooms. Tell me what you need from me.
So we just ran into an issue because it didn't work like it did yesterday when we tried to open them all, because now they're all open and we're trying to assign people, but we're actually sending them off. So are we ready? Are we ready to send them off? Because it's not going to do that automatically. We have to do it manually for each person.
Oh, okay.
Unless somebody can do a test. Sam, I see you're on unmute. When you go to breakout, Sam, does it give you the option to join a breakout room?
Yes, I see the option now.
So I think that's probably the easiest solution. If everybody has the option to join their own breakout room, I can put back the list of the ones that you should be looking to join based on your discipline. There are 5 rooms. Jenny, I know there were 2.
Yeah, I got it. I'll go back to the slide.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I think because it was already an open meeting, it just didn't quite work the way we expected.
Right. Yeah, I don't, yes, I didn't do it. So, right. Shared windows closed. I didn't realize that what I did couldn't be just, picked up on by you guys.
Although Michelle, it looks like Michelle's getting there,
it.
or people are doing it. People are joining their own rooms, which is great.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, here are the rooms.
The only ones I don't know about, Jenny, are the subgroups for math.
Did they ask for them?
No, I don't. Well, somebody's in room 6, but that was the old administrator room.
Right. Okay, we need to get that.
Should I try to close
pull
that
that
one?
person back? Yeah.
I don't know how to do that, but
that was probably me. I put somebody into 6.
Okay.
I'm going to put her back in the main session, and then we'll see where she wants to go. Nice job, Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I'm
That's
sorry.
in-
I think I didn't realize I would have to assign if I created the rooms. I
That's
thought
okay.
you
It
could
works.
just assign people.
It does work just as well to have people join their own, but sometimes that
They
is
can't.
not toggled off, right? Or
Mhm.
toggled on, I guess, in the settings.
Chris, Denise, and Michael, are there rooms that you would like to go to?
And we can stop the recording, Jenny.
Well,
Right.
I thought I was supposed to be in room 1. Sorry about that. This is Denise.
Denise? Okay, just a second. Put you in there.